guys, welcome back to another episode of 20 Questions With, and this guest is known as the original black suited Stig, Perry McCarthy. So thank you for joining me, Perry.
Great to meet you, Becca.
So how have you been today?
Yeah, no, I'm kind of recovering a bit. I was out with a few of my race driver friends, and we spent a couple of days together, and yeah, some tall stories and some tall drinks in that order, you know, or was it the other way around? I'm still recovering.
Too many drinks to remember.
Yeah, it was good fun. Great fun.
Well, hopefully the quick fire round won't be too strenuous for you then if you're still recovering. But we'll best get started with that one, if that's okay, whenever you're ready.
Perfect. Yeah, fire away.
Okay, let's go. So what is your favourite car?
Oh, there's a bunch of them, but it probably always comes down to, you know, a Ferrari of some kind. You know, I'm a sucker for it. You know, the kind of heritage, the image of it, and most of them are really beautiful cars and with great noise. So yeah, that's I guess it comes down to Ferrari. That, you know, there's other cars out there, classics that I really like, DB5s and E-types, and they're all wonderful. Right until the moment you get into drive them, and of course modern cars are so much better. But you know, kind of I'm a sucker for the old styling and the heritage, etc.
Brilliant. Okay, so your favorite track?
I was asked that recently. Actually, most of us will turn around immediately and say Spa-Francorchamps, because it's got a wonderful mixture of corners. It's beautiful countryside, some really undulating stuff. And it's a real joy to go around there flat out. It really is. Kind of like Le Mans. Le Mans is really cool. You know, it's very, very quick, obviously. And then, you know, when I was racing in America, there were a few tracks that were more raw. And I kind of like that as well. You know, they had some real character to them. So I guess if I'm going to be pushed, probably going to say Spa like everybody else, Le Mans. And then you can have soft spots for other places as well.
Brilliant. Okay, and cats or dogs?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I was always a dog person. Then our dog died, and then the family insisted we get cats, and I was going, oh, God. And then suddenly I've become really attached to the cats because I think they can be great fun. And when you've got a couple of them and what they do together, and the psychological warfare in the morning, it's like they've got amnesia every day. You know, they've forgotten who the other one was from yesterday. It's like they're looking, and it's hilarious, you know. So I must admit, I'm a bit of an animal lover, to be honest. So, you know, cats, dog, horses, sheep, whatever you want, I kind of normally like it. Not keen on sharks, but apart from that.
Anything with sharp teeth that is a little bit dangerous, or just no, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, if you had to go to a restaurant, what would be your go-to 3-course meal? This is the one I'm giving out.
There's a kind of a bit of an Essex coming at me here from the years ago. It's you know, we always joke about prawn cocktail, fillet steak, and then like dessert. But I don't know. I must admit, last 20 years or so, I've kind of got a lot more into food, and you know, not that I eat all the time or anything, but the taste of food. So I tell you what's off the menu with me. Is pasta. I really not keen on pasta. I find it really dull, no matter what's poured over it. Hello, is that Freudian slip? Yeah, it's like kind of pretty much everything else. I like to try different stuff, but it has to be, you know, I really like good. I'm stating the obvious, but I like good quality food. So I won't just go anywhere. I'm a bit snobby like that. Yeah.
When it comes to food, though, you've got to, because there's nothing more heartbreaking than spending money on food and it being horrible.
Well, I totally agree with you. I mean, it's just like, you know, you've gone out for a nice evening, you want to have a nice experience, and then a couple of things is that if they're really late serving and they've forgotten your order or got an order wrong, and the other people are sitting around the table and you've got nothing, or same for that. And then when you do get it, it's like mush. And you're just going, oh. But you vote with your feet then, don't you? You just never go back to the place. But it spoils that evening. So.
Definitely. Okay, next question. Your most inspirational driver?
Oh, cracky. Again, that's yeah, honestly, there's loads. You look all the way through from, Fangio, and you just think about that guy's brilliance and what they were in. And the same thing with Sterling Moss, and he was such a character as well. I had the great pleasure of meeting him a few times. I then come through the 60s, and instantly I think of Graham Hill and Jimmy Clark, but many others, and they were all inspirational. And then it kind of, when I started really following it was, I guess, very, very late 70s, early 80s. But clearly, I got to meet James Hunt a few times, and I really like James and Nicky as well, Lauda. So they were fantastic characters, and so there's lots of it's like that question about cars, it's like favorite cars for different particular things, and it's exactly the same with me for drivers. When I first started watching it, really, Jody Scheckter, Gilles Villeneuve, Alan Jones, they were some of the key people. And I found inspiration as a youngster thinking, I want to be like them, I want to be at the front and a hard nut racing driver and look after these things. And then you just come upward and onward through the years. Of course, Ayrton and Michael, and it's just I look at different qualities in different people, not just in motor racing, outside motor racing. I find incredibly interesting and inspirational, and I think, wow, that's wonderful. I mean, Johnny Herbert, my friend, poor Johnny's first ever Grand Prix, he was still recovering from terrible foot injuries, terrible, and he was in so much pain. I mean, we lived a mile away from each other, so we'd see each other every day, especially while he's recovering,
Yeah.
And what he went through to score that incredible 4th place finish in his first ever Grand Prix for Benetton in Brazil. Wow. That was inspirational, coming through that. But that's not written about so much. But they're just little chunks of different things that you hear about and just go, crikey, heroic story,
Yeah, definitely.
And that's obviously without even talking about my stuff.
Obviously.
I'm joking.
So on to the next question. So if it wasn't for motorsport, what other sport do you think you would have gone into?
I don't think I would have done, because I don't really think I was very good at sport. I wasn't bad at gymnastics, but football, rugby, cricket, it just wasn't my cup of tea. I I didn't want to know. I probably would have been more interested in becoming a pianist or something. Maybe I could have done the Olympic piano playing.
They had Mr. Bean doing that, didn't they? For
did they?
London 2020. Was it 2012? It was Mr. Bean that was doing all the piano for the.
I didn't know that. Right. Oh, brilliant!
It's fantastic. Next question: morning or evening? Are you a morning or evening person?
It depends what happens the night before. So a real late night, I'm definitely not a morning person. I've started getting up a bit earlier now, because I've kind of shifted my own clock to go to bed a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
But then I'm kind of get up at like 6:30 or 7 o'clock. I've got a lot on my mind at the moment with a particular project, and it might be coming to fruition. So there's a lot of pressure on, and it's great to get up, walk around the gardens, and just really start thinking, especially in the lovely weather, obviously. That I think, do you know what? I think that's maybe the answer. Probably in the summer, I get up an awful lot earlier than I do in the winter. In the winter, I probably won't get up until maybe 8 o'clock or something. Evening wise, I don't know, it depends how quickly I finish a bottle of wine, really. It's so just I enjoy the evenings. I enjoy films and documentaries and all that kind of stuff. So I'll never be in bed before 10:30, and at the outside, really, if I'm really watching something, I like 1:30.
Yeah, I think it helps as well in the summer when the sun's waking you up naturally, almost, rather than the winter dark more, and you really don't want to get out of bed.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, so I know you mentioned piano, but if it wasn't for motorsport, what is your normal go-to hobby?
Honest to God, it just depends. Sorry to complicate nearly every question, but I don't really have one. I enjoy playing the piano, but I've got something to write, then that's my hobby. Then I'm writing. If I've decided to start training again, then that's my hobby. It's track. So I've kind of, again, something over the last like 15, 20 years. I've enjoyed doing a lot more with gardens here. I do, you know, kind of, we've got an awful lot of trees here. So there's an awful lot of tree surgery that I do, and mowing the lawns and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, and I've been clearing a spot. We're fortunate enough to have a river at the bottom of the garden. So I've been clearing a lot of stuff down there recently. So it's good physical exercise, but I kind of always enjoy light, you know, and how light works and that design. And I think, you know, that's one of the areas, and we'll come on to it if you wish, but that's kind of one of the areas that I came into motor racing, you know, just like design, like outlines, and, you know, yeah, that's so. Again, I don't think I've given you a straightforward answer there, have I? Sorry.
So well, it's all interesting anyway. So next question, what is the scariest thing you've ever done?
This interview,
sorry.
Oh, I don't know. It's, you know, at the time you have to try and squeeze your fear down, but I guess at some circuits when it's been torrential rain, and if you are following somebody or coming up in a back marker or something and you can't see, and I mean you can't see, then you find a way around it once you're in the car. But afterwards you think, Jesus, you know, that was insane. Yeah, that was dumb. So I reckon that's probably yeah, I reckon that's on pole for me. That's but not at the time, but afterwards when you reflect on what you've actually been doing, or in fact when you've seen friends of yours out there doing the same thing, that I find frightening on their behalf, and I'm going, oh my God, you know, because I know you can't see. So,
yeah, from experience.
Yeah.
What is one word you'd use to describe yourself? So just one word. I find this is the hardest one, I think, for everyone.
Probably handsome, obviously. Yeah. Oh, I don't know. There's, you know, I probably couldn't knock it down into one word. I can give you a sentence if you like.
We'll go with a sentence.
I'm an incredibly serious person with a massive sense of humor.
I like that. I'll let you off for one word for that. That's good enough.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you've survived the quick fire round. Was it okay? You can breathe.
Yeah. Don't tell me I've got half my answers wrong.
No, don't worry, they're all fine.
Oh, thank God.
So we're going to move on to a little bit more about yourself, your sort of history in motorsport and bits like that. So we've got 10 nice, easy, just sort of relaxed questions now, if that's okay.
Far away.
Here we go. So first question, how did you actually get into motorsports? Where did it all begin?
Yeah, I never followed motor racing as a kid. I was at college studying law, economics and art, and a friend of mine used to bring this magazine in called Grand Prix International, and it had some fantastic photography, really beautiful shots of race cars. And I was doing lots of portraits and stuff like that at the time. I'm not a brilliant artist. I'm a very good copier. Okay, but there's no real talent, you know. But I used to then start drawing these cars and reading about the drivers. At the same time, I just got onto the road, and that's something the Essex Police wasn't too keen on, because I was finding that I wasn't too bad actually as a driver, but very, very naughty practicing on the road, you know, which is dumb. But anyway, that's what happened. And, you know, kind of word got around about my driving, and suddenly the chief instructor at Brands Hatch Racing actually came out to get me because he kept hearing about it, and took me to Brands Hatch.
Wow.
And then I drove him around. Then he drove me around, and I thought, he's amazing. He was about 60 at the time. I'm Jack the Landing, I'm throwing it around everything else. Then he gets in, probably blew me away on time, so much nicer. But I watched him, and he said, right, you get back in, and that was it. And then I went very quick, and he was a real character. All the time I was doing it, he said, oh, you lovely boy, you lovely boy, you lovely boy. And I was going, right, okay, right, you know, and that was it. And that was when the on switch went down. And I just said, this is what I want to do. But it was a tough one because, you know, shortly I found out about motor racing, that you needed huge amounts of money to even start. So I went to work on North Sea oil rigs for 2 years to get the money together. and that was fun. Not. But anyway, got the money together, and that's how I then came in, called a team that wasn't too far away from me, actually, that was running Van Diemen race cars in the Formula 4 Championship, and joined them. And then off the street, I came straight in, and I set 3 pole positions off the bat. Yeah, but I was bloody useless. Nobody was worried about me because I was just smashing the car into the wall from the front all the time. And they were going, he's on pole, but he's going to smash himself up. So, but that was only 6 races. And then the following year, I won the British Championship. So kind of made my mark, and was already knocking on Formula 1 doors to make sure they knew I was around, and la-di-da, knocking on doors, getting sponsorship and trying to do deals, because the rig money, even after 2 years of it, had run out. So that was all there was after 2 years of working out there for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. That just got me started,
Yeah.
So yeah, but it was a gamble, and that part of the gamble paid off. But it was and then I can't remember it getting easier afterwards.
Would you say you're quite, I know this is a little side question, so this doesn't count as 21, but obviously nowadays you look at the F1 drivers, they've been karting since they were, before they could walk, really. So would you say you were quite a late starter at the time, or was it a bit different back then where people were put into karts as a toddler?
Yeah, I think it's even more prevalent now that people are coming through had a karting background, but I was against a lot of people who had been karting for a number of years, or had already been in Formula Ford for a number of years, etc. So, you've got to, there just wasn't the money to turn around and say, and this is my learning year, and then next year I hope to do a bit better. And then, no, this is kind of like, you turn it on now, sunshine, or you're finished. That's pretty much it. So, yeah, that was... yeah, no, I was definitely against people. There were also a few chancers like me that had come off the street, but they didn't really stay around too long, But they gave it a go, obviously.
And that's the main thing, isn't it? You're not going to know until you give it a go.
I think so, yeah. But I mean, there's a whole bunch of ways of giving it a go, and you can save yourself some aggravation if you've got somebody around you who knows what they're doing or has done it before. Because I didn't, and I think crikey, I made a truckload of mistakes, but if you're making the mistakes, you learn from them, and then if you can stay around and stay in the game for long enough, then that's, that because you're starting on your own journey, and you're so well in making lots and lots of things happen. I think that's fantastic. That's why I actually agreed to do this with you, because I was so impressed about your tenacity and your own determination to come through and do something,
Definitely, because like I say, I'm 22, so realistically, the game I'm in, I'm a late starter. But what's so nice about the competition I'm in is that doesn't really matter. Everyone's kind of, regardless of what age you're in, they are kind of letting you give it that go. And I want to make sure I can go to the competition, come away and be like, I've given absolutely everything I've got, and then you won't be disappointed. So.
Yeah. Well, obviously, unless you completely mess it up on the day, but apart from that,
touch wood.
No, but listen, the way you're going about it is best preparation. So you're trying, you're focused, you're getting ready for it, and you're giving it your all. And I really like that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Oh, and the money you promised me for this interview.
No, well, you mean chocolates?
Oh yeah,
that was it. Handmade chocolates. That's where it's at.
Fantastic.
So on to the next question. It kind of links on quite nicely. So throughout the whole journey, obviously including finances, what other barriers did you experience, and how did you manage to overcome them?
Sadly, I experienced many barriers around the edge of the circuit far too often when I went into them. Barriers, yeah, honestly, I think that I can pretty much put because after I won the Formula 4 Championship, I wanted to go straight to Formula 3. But what I did do was go straight to hospital. The first or second race of the following year, I had a massive accident, which broke my back. That put me out for nearly a year. And then when I came back, I had to stay in Formula Ford again. And I just did not want to be there. Absolutely not want to be there. And it really showed, and I was actually thinking, is this for me? I'm kind of, this is how I felt. I thought, I'm not a Formula 4 driver. I'm a Formula 3 driver, and I need to be there. And again, a little bit like you, I actually used that year to try and construct the contacts, the money, the brochures that were needed, everything in order to get the sponsorship to get me to F3. And I did it. And there's always an element of luck in these things, because after contacting 500,000 companies, I did find one that was going to do it on a big level. And I easily owe them my career, in my opinion, for getting me out and getting me into F3. And that's where I started doing pretty well again. Thank goodness.
Thank you. Yeah, thankfully. So obviously, what you're well known for is being the original black suited Stig on Top Gear. So how did you find it working on the show? And is there one particular car or sort of episode moment that sort of stands out as your favourite time on the show?
I mean, the show itself, remember, we kicked this off in 2002. So Top Gear had been off air for a long time by then. And then when they said, look, Perry, we've got an idea for you, which was actually at my book launch, because I wrote my autobiography about coming all the way through motor racing and flat out, flat broke. And we had this great big party in London, and Jeremy Clarkson was there, and lots of other friends from media and motor racing. And Jem said, well, look, Top Gear's been off there for quite a while, and we've got an idea for you. There's a character we're thinking about, and it's going to be a secret racing driver. So we started talking it through. And originally, Jeremy said, and you're going to wear black gloves, black overalls, black boots, a black crash helmet, a black visor, and we're going to call you the Gimp. I said, no, you're not. Oh, no, you're not. And they said, why not? So I said, you're joking. I said, I've been in motor racing 20 years by then. Something will always come out, a secret, I said, I'm not being known as the Gimp. Well, we want that. I said, well, find somebody else. That's it. Anyway, they must have thought about it. And then they came back and said, the Stig. And I went, fine, that's great. And then going around the track in the cars, sure, I'd always give 100%, always try and get the last bit out of the car. Boring for me personally, no matter what the car was. It's like, oh, okay, fine, there's the limits, but it's not racing, you know? I mean, obviously as a racing driver, you have to be a test driver as well, because of all the things that you need to do to try and make the car faster, identify weaknesses, identify if a change works, if it doesn't work, etc., etc. But that was like, okay, I'd probably come up to speed on a pretty much any car, 5 or 6 laps, I reckon, and think, okay, I reckon I've bottomed out here, do one more to try and squeeze another 10th out of it or whatever, just for fun. But it really wasn't my cup of tea. But we were all stunned about how Top Gear was taken internationally. I mean, the show ended up in 215 different territories. The Stig became like this huge talking point. I mean, at one time, it was within the top 10 most asked questions on the internet. Like, who is the Stig? It was just behind, is there a God and am I pregnant? It was right up there with those two. So, and there was a lot of conjecture about who the Stig was. And, I've said to loads of people, I'd be standing down the pub listening to a couple of people speaking and saying, who do you think the Stig is? And I was thinking, well, you're standing next to him, actually, mate,
Hello, just me.
Yeah. No, I didn't say anything, not even for free lager.
It's worth a shot.
Yeah, it's a good idea, actually. I could keep going back now and doing it. But yeah, so, I mean, I was kind of under control about Top Gear, but I recognized it was, it was entertaining a lot of people, and that was nice to be part of. But then after the second series, I kind of didn't want to do it anymore. And the newspapers had already got hold of the fact it was me, because I think they fired somebody in the production team who went to the newspapers to say it's Perry, Yeah. So then afterwards, when I relaunched the book, then it was there with the stories about Top Gear, etc. It was it was great that so many people loved it, and that was super. And then in the second edition of my book, I included a few pages in it to just say, pretty much everybody knows I was Stiggy, so this is how it happened. That was it, but certainly didn't write a book about being the Stig. So,
Brilliant. So obviously you've driven in both F1 and Le Mans. So with them two being very different sort of types of races, how do they differ and how are they actually similar in the style of driving?
Well, really, it's the type of car kind of more than the event for me personally, because I mean, years and years ago, people used to have to take their foot off the gas and nurse the cars a little bit at Le Mans. But as technology's progressed, it's become way, way, way more of a 24-hour flat-out sprint, you know. And unless you're completely dominating, then you can kind of look after the car a bit more. I think that I think the opening laps of, let's say, a normal single-seater race are more manic because you can make up more spaces then, and those initial laps are more important as part of your race strategy, because your race is only going to be like an hour and a half in F1 or something like that. So it's kind of, there is a slight bit more madness going on in Grand Prix. But, you know, the Le Mans is an incredible, I'm stating the obvious here, but it's an incredible endurance event because, you know, you end up being up from, I don't know, 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, and you're probably going to end up having proper sleep about 10 o'clock at night on Sunday, you know, and in the meantime, you know, you might try and get a bit of kip or shut eye in the back trailer or something like that, but you're never completely rested because you're always thinking what's going on. And so it's important across the entire period to, you know, maintain hydration and try and make sure that you're on the right kind of food stuff, few gentle exercises, etc. But you're always thinking what's going on. And the other big difference is that you kind of care way more about your teammates because you're sharing a car. And so, you know, we're all competitive. We want to be the ones setting a real quick lap time, and, you know, you'll push each other. But when you're a teammate in a single seater, then actually your worst enemy is your teammate because he's perceived to have the same equipment and you want to be seen to be so much faster. So there's a few kind of structural differences like that. But yeah, it's just so long. It really is. But it's amazing. The crowd are always amazing at Le Mans, and it's such an exciting event. And you kind of, you must always try and remember how, you know, how lucky you are to be chosen for a major team to be there. And just go, wow, I am a lucky boy. Okay, job time, let's get on with it. But you can let yourself have a little smile, especially when you're in the car and the sun's just coming up or something like that, and it's really pretty, and you're doing 225 miles an hour, you know, and just going, this is why I signed up, isn't it? You know? Right. Yeah.
So if you had to pick between the two, which one would it be? Would you rather go and do a Le Mans race or go do an F1 race or single-seater?
F1 for me. Yeah, it would be F1, but it's, you know, it's a close call. I enjoyed Le Mans, you know, I enjoyed sports cars, but when I first kicked off, my ambition wasn't just to be a professional racing driver; it was to be a Formula One driver, and that I was so blinkered on that is that, you know, a little while ago where we were talking about mistakes, I think I made some errors with not pursuing in parallel something to do with Group C, which is now LMP1, you know, something like that in the World Endurance Championship, because that was brilliant racing. I kind of neglected that a little bit too much. Had a great time in America doing it for a couple of years, you know, and that went very well for me. And that's what led to me getting into F1. Shame F1 didn't go as well, but there you go.
That's another story.
Yes, a long one.
So obviously you've been in the motorsport game a long time and you've seen it change throughout the years. But how do you think motorsport has changed, and especially towards women in motorsport?
Well, first of all, the women in motorsport totally welcome that, and I'm not just saying that to be politically correct. I think that it's out there for anybody to do, but it's always been tough, and sure, it's been discriminatory because, you know, there's got to be the confidence that, let's say, a young lady or a lady can actually do this, and if they need funding, then maybe the potential sponsors are thinking, oh, maybe they can't. But, you know, the breakthrough that's happening now, you know, people are realizing that women are in motorsport, they can be racing drivers, and so because of all the efforts, hopefully there are fewer hurdles to clear. And so when you get initiatives like the one you're entering, which is Formula Woman, or the more established at the moment W Series, then what's happening there is that we've got the opportunity to let's look at some talented ladies out there let's give them a shot and let's try and see who's the very best of those. Now, then they'll enter the mainstream and then go against the existing stars which may be girls as well that have come through a different way, or guys. And then obviously then they've got to compete against everybody, which is obvious. But it's a super initiative to not just bring more women in, but attract more interest. And that in turn develops more people who want to come in at the same time. But we're seeing that diversity happen all the way through, because there are so many engineers now, strategists and everything else, up to and including Formula One, that are bringing in female talent and recognizing that, and they're blooming good at it, you know? So it's fantastic. So I'm all in favor of that. That was a different question to how motorsport has changed. There have been incredible advances in safety, which is great. I wasn't originally in favor of the halo, because I just thought it looked so blimmin' ugly. But incredibly, we've had so many instances since it came in where we're thinking, okay, thank goodness for that. I'm still a tiny bit of a dinosaur with all these kind of runoff areas and everything, because I think that kind of leads to people, you know, anybody can try and overtake around the outside if you think you've got another half a mile of runoff area. We were, again, when I said I was with my friends a couple of days ago, we were discussing just this. You know, if ever we did pull off an overtake around the outside, there was a big price to pay if that didn't come off. You know, so it wasn't always the done thing. That's why it was so wide-eyed and respected if you got away with it. And then the other thing that I'm really concerned about is this constant microscopic interpretation of drivers when they're fighting, and then somebody always having to be at fault with a penalty system. And, you know, that should be there for absolute blatant unfair driving. Not for a punch up on track, not for a real genuine mistake, a real dumb mistake. Sure, okay, but you know, when you're having big dust ups on track, we want to see that as spectators. We want that excitement, and I fear for Formula One that it's being examined too closely, and it's really taking the edge out of it. I think to many other people in more dangerous sports, believe it or not, I think it's almost becoming a laughing stock with how people react to this. And we saw plenty of reaction at the British Grand Prix, which I wasn't in favour of all of it, believe me.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. For me, absolute all day long, that was a racing incident. You know, that's absolute genius drivers fighting. And if you look at the history of Lewis Hamilton, there's absolutely, well, you can say so many brilliant things about that guy, but one thing you can definitely underline, that guy is a hard racer, but fair, really fair. And I just don't think he goes in to take anybody out. So some of the stuff that's floating around at the moment, you just go, oh, for God's sake. But that's my opinion, you know?
Definitely. And I think it's always going to be floating around, isn't it? As soon as there's sort of something to be gossiping about, almost the news, and everyone will be straight on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So obviously you're still kind of involved in motorsport here and there, but what are your aspirations at the moment within and without motorsport? Maybe write another book or get back in the seat?
Won't be writing another book. I think I've covered it with that one. So you know, it's really nice that people still call up or email me and stuff like that, and that they've enjoyed it. So I really appreciate that. That's great. Getting back in the seat, I did get back in a little bit toward the end of 2019, and I did some stuff in the European Rallycross Championship, the Titan series. And that was so much fun. Really, really enjoyed it. I hadn't been in the cockpit for, I don't know, was it 16 or 17 years by then, I think. Is that right? Yeah. So it was kind of big, wow, here we go. And this is like sitting in the firework with all the other fireworks, bang, 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 you know. So it's kind of different to what I'm used to. But what great people to race against, you know, that Hanson brothers, who were, you know, leaders in the World Championship of Rallycross. they're the first to come over and start trying to help me. Perry, try and do this, try and turn in like that, and try and put your foot down there and everything. And it was really sweet. It was a lovely experience. Made a load of new friends there, and I enjoyed it. Yeah, I started getting a bit quicker and quicker, and that was good. But yeah, I don't think they're going to be worried about me for the World Championship if I come back. So that's great. But I kind of, it's off the radar again at the moment, because I can't go into what I'm doing at the moment. But it's taken very nearly 2 years to bring something that's going to will make a lot of news soon. So it's the first time that this particular thing's ever been done, and that's really exciting. But it's kind of I'm in Perry world most of the time, on sorting it out, organizing people, trying to get decisions, breakthroughs here, and we're coming to the end of it. But very, very exciting for everybody concerned. So can't wait to boast about it.
Definitely, I can't wait to hear about it. I'm intrigued now.
I'll tell you when it happens.
Oh, brilliant! I can keep an eye out then.
Absolutely.
So you do a lot of after dinner speaking. I know my dad saw you at one of his work conferences once, which he doesn't shut up about.
But a man of good taste.
He really is. Honestly, it's what he goes on about. He's like, oh, I've met the original Stig, and I can be like, now I can come back and be like, well, I've interviewed him. Very jealous. But obviously, most speakers tend to have their go-to funny story that they tell at a dinner. So what would be your go-to funny story that you tell at your speeches?
Oh God, there's a load that I think are funny. They really are. I don't honestly. I couldn't put my finger on one. I always enjoy trying to do a Kimi Räikkönen impression.
Go on, give it a shot.
For me, I like watching the television and watching Kimi interview, because Kimi is somebody who doesn't really care about anything. You know, you see him interviewed. You're young, you're good looking, you've just won the World Championship. Yeah, we need to do some more work with the car and the team, and then maybe the tires, you know. And you've just got married. Yeah, we see how it goes. It's like that Kimi had. I was with Kimi a little while ago, and I said to him, Kimi, you don't hear that name every day of the week, do you? He said, I do.
He's one of a kind, isn't he?
He's one of my favourite out there. The other guy that I really love out there is Seb Vettel.
So genuine.
It's just that, and Sebastian he's the most incredible person. Is incredibly articulate, but he's so eloquent. We were at Charlie Whiting's memorial service, and Charlie was, you know, one of the top guys at the FIA at every Grand Prix. And we all really like Charlie, you know. And Sebastian gave a speech there on behalf of Charlie, and it was quite literally, you know, he clearly gave it in English, and it was one of the most touching, beautiful, heartwarming speeches. The guy he's got poet in him, you know. So the only thing is, he does keep making quite a few mistakes for a 4-time world champion, but when he turns it on, he's still brilliant. But yeah, as a bloke, I like Sebastian. I think he's got a great sense of humour.
Yeah, he always comes across really sort of down to earth, genuine, and then when he's on the racetrack, head down, gets to it.
Totally. And then we've got a couple of young lads, which are, you know, always smiling ear to ear, seeing how they're doing. Lando and also George.
Yeah.
And fantastic racing drivers. What a career those boys have got ahead of them. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I love seeing those guys do well.
Definitely. I mean, even especially Lando this year, all of a sudden something's just clicked for him, and he is getting podiums. He's obviously the only driver to finish in the points every race. He's just all of a sudden clicked. And even George, what he's getting out of that Williams is just fantastic. I think
you've taken the words out of my mouth, Beck. Thank you. And maybe you can put some in there. Well,
yeah,
we feel the same way. Yeah,
it's definitely going to be a really good season, and it's the highlight of the month is every race. Totally.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. But there's a bunch of them I like seeing do well. You know, I've got a soft spot for a few of them out there, and I admire all of them. You know, but I think that, yeah, ultimately, I'm not desperately bothered about who wins, to be quite frank, as long as we've seen a great race and been excited and the event is thrilling, you know. Even with Lewis, you know, it's like Lewis is a Brit, is our, you know, I mean, between me and Lewis, we've actually won 7 world championships. But even with that, you know, I absolutely love it and applaud it when Lewis wins, and I absolutely love it and applaud it when somebody else wins. You know, so I'm not into that. It has to be a Brit thing. I just like to see excellence and great driving.
Yes, definitely. And I mean, I think for me, the best race so far was it Barcelona? That was the wet race.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Whenever it rains, it definitely gets the entertainment value, just shoots right up, and you really do see the skills of the drivers. It's not down to just the dry track off they go. It's really is down to skill.
Absolutely. And you can be in something that's not so hot, and you know, if you're particularly good in the rain, then you can make a difference, you know.
Yeah, as demonstrated by George Russell nearly overtaking Bottas. That was a close call.
Yeah, that was a good one, wasn't it?
Oh dear. Well, hopefully they're all friends after that.
Doubt it.
I was going to say, when we saw George tap, well, it was a whack really, Bottas on the head, we thought he was just checking he was all right, and then you saw the footage afterwards, and obviously Bottas is swearing at him. George, you see him actually swing for it, and we think, oh god, okay, yeah.
No, actually, to be quite honest, I'm kind of familiar with how one paces themselves walking toward another car, and I kind of had a rough idea that wasn't the same. How you doing, mate? Let's have a beer later.
Yeah, hope you're all right. We'll get a beer to catch up later.
Yeah, I didn't think that was going to be happening. Yeah.
Okie dokie. So moving on, what are the key skills? So let's say the top 3 skills would make a good racing driver.
I think there's one underneath that. You know, once you're at the top level, you know, you kind of presume that you're probably pretty good, or other people do anyway. But then there's that marginal thing there, which is like, you know, how much do you want it? And it's desperately important, and that requires consistent focus. Yeah. You know, consistent dedication, attention to detail, all the way through, all of those things, because you're really aiming at something that's terribly difficult, and you're against very, very, very good people thinking the same ways. And so the measurements come down into tiny fractions of a second, and it's all about marginal gains, and it's thinking, what else can I do? What else can I do to be better? And I guess one of the things that I always kind of liked about motor racing and the life around it was that it appeared to me that no matter what I did, there was room for improvement. There was always something more that you could do. And this sport and the ambition of being at the top demands everything. Yeah. So there is a sacrifice there. There's a determination. So I've swerved the 3-word answer that you wanted. It's all encompassing. But I think that you have to be honest with yourself as well. You know, you need to make progress. You need to be fast. And, you know, this thing, the stopwatch, is everything. Yeah. You know, it really is, because that really says who you are to the people who are employing you, to the people who might employ you, to your competitors and everything. So it's, you know, I always make the joke that, you know, most drivers would probably tear the arms off their grandmother, even the one they loved, to get another half second. You know, it requires everything. That's the thing. And I kind of, there was quite a few hurdles, sadly, I had to come through. But I rather hope I didn't waste my time moaning too much, because it was just about, there's the next challenge, and in order to stay in the game, I've got to do this. Yeah. That was it. Overcome it. Yeah, or give up and, like, you know, be looking in the mirror for the rest of your life, going, could I have done it? Could I have done it? You know, that's the thing. So focus, absolute focus, because there are so many problems at all times. So the focus is, how can I get through the problem, go under it, around it, go over it, go through it, but whatever, remove the problem. Yeah. And whatever the problem is, you know.
Definitely. That's brilliant. And we're finally,
these chocolates of yours better be nice. I tell you, you're getting, these are gems here. It's pearls.
I must admit, I'm slightly biased, but I can't eat any other kind of like truffles apart from my own now. It's been slightly biased, but
good advertising.
When I very first made them, when I was like working out the recipes, we got bought a box of Thorntons by the neighbours because we cleaned their car.
Yeah.
And we
It's
ate
sweet.
one bite of them. Can't eat it. And that doesn't want to sound big-headed, because I don't like sounding big-headed, but we were just genuinely there, like, you can just taste the artificial flavour of it. And even down to the fact the honeycomb baton had no honeycomb in it. And now if I make a honeycomb truffle, it's got massive chunks of bits of honeycomb throughout it.
Becca, I'll do it for you, okay? Because you're still swerving around the brand, okay? So, ladies and gentlemen, please try Tailored Truffles. You'll find that they are unbelievably delicious and all at a very good price. Tailored Truffles.
There we go. That's all I need. I'm going to put that everywhere. Don't worry, they can be arranged, definitely.
Joking, I'm joking.
No, I'm more than happy to. It's free advertising. So last but not least, getting sidetracked by chocolate, which is easily done.
Absolutely, yeah.
What is your best advice for someone that wants to make it in the world of motorsport, whether that's a driver, as a mechanic, just trying to break through into that world?
I think they're probably different for if one wants to come through an engineering route throughout motor racing. That I'd offer different advice to those people than I would a driver, to be honest. We touched on this earlier, is that it's incredibly difficult to make it to the top if that's one's ambition as a driver. And so, you're going to have to be the world's biggest optimist, as I was, to be quite frank. So I'm very hesitant to turn around and say, don't even try it. It's not even worth it. You'll never make it, because the odds against it are, depends if you've got money or not got money. But if you've not got money, the odds are even bigger against getting through. And that's if you're good, So, but if you are determined, then it's all of the things that I was saying when we were just answering the last question, which is it's complete focus on trying at all stages to remove any problems, making yourself visible, trying to get in to do anything, to get in the car and then make sure you're fast at all times. But, unless you get picked up, unless you find big boy sponsorship or whatever from someone, it's going to be a long, long journey. So I don't know what my advice is. I really don't, because anybody who's got the absolute raw passion that needs to come through would take no notice of me anyway, which is quite right. They would just say, well, this is what I'm doing. I don't need anybody to tell me. And to be quite frank, that's probably what's needed. That dedication to say, I'll blow you all. I'm going to do this at all costs. From an engineering perspective, I believe it can be, it's still very difficult to, become a top mechanic and engineer on the motor side, on the chassis side, the fabrication side, or whatever. But there is more of a route through there, because there are naturally, of course, way more of those people. You look at the bigger teams with over 1,000 people inside them, so if you times that by 10 people, 10 teams, it's a crude way of doing it, but let's say you've got 10,000 people there as against 20 drivers. So clearly the odds show. And the other thing is that there's not as many barriers to actually learning more, because there's clearly, if one's good at maths or whatever it is within the direction that person wishes to pursue, then they can, if they find this early enough, they can then go to college, they can then go to university, and then they're quite attractive to, let's say, a junior or mid-formula team, earn their spurs there, make the right connections. That's when you then start saying, right, I need to chat him up, I need to chat her up, I need to make them aware that I'm around, and then put your CV in, and then that's how you come through. But it is slightly more structured, in my personal, well, it's not my opinion, it is slightly more structured. That's all there is to it. Yeah. So, but I would wish anybody wanting to pursue a life in this game great luck, because it's blooming tough, but there are some super rewards both sides of the pit wall, and there's a great camaraderie, and it's a competitive environment, and it can be terribly exciting. And who doesn't want to travel the world, go to new circuits and see fast cars? There you go.
Living the dream.
All sponsored by Tailored Truffles.
Exactly. Maybe one day. Well, that's actually the end of the 20 questions. You survived it all. I think you definitely earned your chocolates.
Becca, thank you very much for having me on, and everybody else, hope you enjoyed it and stay safe.
So guys, that's another end of our 20 questions. So you know the drill. We're back every Monday at 6 p.m. You guys know the drill. To make my journey your journey, like, follow, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.